how can we perhaps talk about this value creation, what the railway might look like? What's a nice way to sort of frame the potential on the ground? What is this railway going to mean to the communities that it's going to pass through, but also to the rest of the UK? I'm actually currently walking on what used to be the East Coast Main Line. It's a 125 mile an hour railway. Now, you can see on this bridge that I'm sort of currently walking across, it's a very popular cycle path. But whenever I'm cycling here, I often think, what was it like when there was a railway whizzing along, trains going along at 125 miles an hour, two-track railway, two-track main line. And it got me thinking, well, this is kind of what we're thinking with Borders Railway, the former Borders Union Railway that was a two-track main line into Scotland. And I think a really good way to frame this value is to think about what a day in the life of the railway might look like. Our story starts pretty early in the morning, 5 a.m, a day in the life of our railway. We're in Hawick, and northwards, an intermodal freight train carries containers, electric loco, carrying all manner of goods northwards to the Scottish Central Belt. But on the platform at Hawick facing southwards, a TransPennine Express service pulls in. Passengers get on board, just a few, so that they can start their holiday from Manchester Airport. Others are taking the train to connect to go across to Leeds, and even more are getting the early train so they can start a meeting in London. Roll forwards a little bit. We start reaching peak commuter time. Stations right across the line, including on the existing railway right now, are filling up with people who want to commute, not just northwards to Edinburgh, but south to Carlisle, to Lancaster, perhaps even to Manchester. All those people moving, councillors getting on the train from Hawick, heading to the council office at Newtown St Boswell's, people getting on the train, perhaps even in Tweedbank, with the intention of getting off the train at Carlisle and getting onto the Avanti service southwards. All these different patterns of service, and it's only just the morning. So as things kind of maybe get quieter, we start thinking, the station maybe is starting to be used by leisure travellers, cyclists putting their wrangling their bicycles onto the train, making use of the extensive sort of cycle facilities that have been built at the station, cycle locking. Meanwhile, within the station buildings, you have community spaces, people using them for yoga. There's people having a cup of tea. Whole range of, the railway is not just about the railway itself. It's connecting communities. It's creating a kind of a lifeline to connect these communities up. Create a sense of place that perhaps hasn't existed for quite a number of decades. As you continue through the day, more freight. There's paper trains carrying, China clay. You have goods trains carrying timber. But it's not just the raw timber. Thanks to the railway, there has been a business case and a justification to construct new factories that actually process that timber. So it's not just logs going out, but also it's some of the processed goods, whether it's sort of intermediate processed goods or actually creating furniture, creating products to actually be sold. Opportunities abound. As we get through the day, towards the end of the day, we have commuter traffic again. School kids are hopping on the train at the end of the school day, taking the school train, getting them either north away from college at Carlisle, or perhaps heading away from colleges and schools right the way through the Borders. Commuter traffic, or the fact that people are relying on getting off the train and hopping on a bus, electric buses. We have bus charging at the station, so the electric buses can head off to places like Selkirk, Jedburgh, kind of connecting up through lots of places that have previously just not had those connections, those railway connections, or generally just high quality public transport connections. There's so much opportunity. As you get later in the evening, you've got revellers making their way not just up to Edinburgh, as is popular on the Borders Railway now, but down to Carlisle and perhaps even connecting up to Manchester and the rest of the country. People travelling late in the evening to get to Europe by train. Catch an early evening train southwards so they can actually connect up to Eurostar and make their way onto the continent. And then later in the evening again, once more we have these intermodal freight trains carrying goods through the night, getting where they need to be. So hopefully by painting that kind of day in the life picture, that's helped to kind of give an idea of what sort of services, what opportunities the railway will enable. Mike's now going to go through some real kind of data, the stuff that you've really been waiting for, journey times, kind of a look at the route corridors, how the railway is actually going to fit into the landscape, some of the specifications of the railway. This picture, the whole picture that we're painting here, is trying to show that this is not a slow rural railway we're talking about. We're talking about a new mainline connection between Scotland and England. All the opportunities that can provide, all the revenue that can drive, all of the connectivity, both locally, regionally and nationally, that this railway can create. Mike, take it away.
Well, no, it's not Mike, it's me still. But yeah, you get the picture. Thanks, Dina, for filming that, by the way. She's very good, isn't she? So, journey times are key. Someone's saying it sounds like you're not running a clock face schedule. No, don't get me wrong. We're running a super clock face schedule here. This is, we're talking about half-hourly trains, in my view, if not more frequent than that, but certainly half-hourly trains. And the reason why we can achieve that is some of the journey times. So firstly, let's just paint the picture versus road. So versus road, the railways are achieving greatness because we have, say Tweedbank to Hawick is currently around about half an hour on a road. The railway could take 50 minutes, so you're saving 20 minutes. It's a big win. The Hawick to Carlisle currently takes an hour and 8 minutes. Hawick to Carlisle, the train could take 30 minutes, so you're saving 40 minutes there. Tweedbank to Carlisle, so going right away from Tweedbank to Carlisle, currently on the road it takes an hour and a half. It only takes 45 minutes, so that you're basically halving the time because you're saving 50 minutes there. So you're more than half the time. Or saving more than half the time. So serious journey time improvements versus road. But actually what's very interesting is when we start talking about journey times to other places. So this is where it starts getting interesting, is we start looking at journey times via the West Coast Main Line at the moment. So Carlisle to Edinburgh, hour 19. The journey time via the Borders Railway, and this is not me making up numbers, this is via one of the industry boffins, Ed Jeffrey. Ed concludes that you would, via the Borders Railway, and that's without upgrades north of Tweedbank, by the way, in terms of journey time, an hour 16. So actually, to Edinburgh, from Carlisle to Edinburgh, you're saving a few minutes. So you actually, admittedly, you need to have work done north of Tweedbank in terms of the capacity, but in terms of the journey time explicitly, it's actually quicker to go via the Borders Railway, even though the West Coast Main Lines are faster railways, because the route, our proposed route, would be that much better. This is how you build the case the transport case, the railway case. So Manchester Piccadilly to Edinburgh, 3 hours 9 minutes via the West Coast Main Line, 3 hours 6 minutes via Borders Railway. So what I'm pointing out here is that you divert all of the Transpennine Express route services onto the Borders route. Lockerbie. I joke, of course. Lockerbie you'd have to work out what that service looks like, and Transpennine would be the one that potentially be the ones there. Actually, it wouldn't be. You'd be running it. Whoever is running the service through there, you'd be whoever it might be. It really ought to be a Scottish provider who runs into the Scottish town. But anyway, so Manchester Airport to Tweedbank. This is the interesting one. Manchester Airport to Tweedbank currently 4 hours 40 minutes. Via Borders Railway, it would be less than 3 hours, 2 hours 50 minutes. So, huge saving. And in London to Tweedbank, you're talking, 5 hours 45 to 4 hours 27. So you're talking about major savings here. So these timings are pretty substantial in terms. The point of this isn't so much that they're an improvement; it's more that it's comparable. The key thing is that you're not creating a slow weaving rural line. The reason I included these numbers when I was talking to this in terms of the policymakers was trying to impress upon the campaign and also the politicians of Scotland. You could build this slowly and it would cost 3.5 billion quid. The fact that you're choosing to improve the alignment is not going to, you're not talking about making enormous savings by making it a slower railway and you get a worse product. So you can spend the same amount of money and get a product that is comparable with the West Coast Main Line, therefore fulfilling what I've talked about, which is a third mainline railway connecting across the Scottish border. That is what this is about. So this is kind of what you can achieve as a service at the moment. So, but about freight, the journey time is a bit different because of the distances to the key. So if we're talking about intermodal freight, the trouble with with getting stuff into Edinburgh rather than the West Coast Main Line is that those most of the stuff is facing the West Coast Main Line, not Edinburgh. So using the existing terminals, Moss End and Coatbridge. So some of the sort of standard moves, Carlisle to Moss End or Felix to Coatbridge, you're talking about increasing the journey time quite a bit for freight for the short moves like Carlisle to Moss End. But if you are thinking about a journey that's currently scheduled at 16 hours 7 minutes, it's increasing only by an hour. So a long, Felixstowe Coatbridge, a pretty classic intermodal move. If you're increasing it by an hour, but you get 2 more paths, 3 more paths a day, or maybe, I don't know, an additional path an hour, or 2 paths an hour running, running in amongst things over the Borders Railway, because you should build this, by the way, to be a high density route as well, more like a Swiss or more like an Alpine main line. You really up the density. Achieve that. That's where you get your major benefits, because you're losing an hour by the fact that you've got an extra hour of faffing around in the Scottish borders, in the Scottish Central Belt, but you get your capacity boost. So the next thing I want to talk about, and this is more for the benefit of the nerds, these are the timings. This is the mixture of timings you get. I'm not going to go into all of them in detail, but you can have a look here. These are the timings that you get for both options for a variety of stock on both non-stop and stopping services. So key factor here that I wanted to point out is the difference in journey time for a stopping service that is electrified versus one that is not electrified. So if you're running the service of the 158 or a 170, you're talking about a journey time from Carlisle to Edinburgh of 2 hours 5 minutes. If you've electrified the rail, which obviously you must do, you get an hour 42, and you can better regulate trains among each other, so you get more capacity as well as the acceleration up over the hill. It makes a big difference because of how steep the hill is. Both hills, you get a major journey time benefit, 25-minute saving. That's a substantial, what is that, 25% or something? Substantial journey time saving from the fact that you running electric versus diesel.